Okay, we're back here at goRIA, fueled by investment news. We're broadcasting and recording live from T3 in, not Los Angeles, Las Vegas. I said that almost twice today.
Las Vegas is correct.
How can I not know I'm in Vegas? So for those of you in the audience, you're kind of watching us in a corner, but there's about 150, 200 people milling around ahead of us. And hopefully these microphones are doing their jobs and picking up Brian and myself and not the entire audience behind us. Okay, so with us we have Brian Layton, who is the Senior Vice President of Custody Services at Raymond James, a firm I'm very familiar with and like quite a bit. Brian, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely, glad to be here.
So there's a lot I want to talk to you about, but what I want to kind of focus on, because we only have about 10 minutes for this, a little taste for the audience, is the idea of custodians like Raymond James providing their own technology for advisors that are looking to go RIA. What are you guys doing on that front?
So we're an interesting firm and a bit different than some of our other colleagues in the industry, where if you think about it, one of the most important credos of being an advisor at Raymond James is that you own your book. So unlike in a wirehouse, where the wirehouse thinks they own the book, our advisors know they own the book, and they can walk tomorrow. They can walk to a different affiliation within Raymond James, or they can depart and do something else. So why does that matter? Because we fight for advisors' experience every single day.
Yeah.
Huge number I'm going to put out there. Raymond James spends more than $500 million.
Just a little closer. It's so loud back here.
Raymond James spends over $500 million every year on technology.
500 million?
500 million.
Holy smoke. I knew it was high. I honestly did not know it was quite that high.
So we're in it to win it. There's a reason why that part of the firm has been very, very successful. And the reason I bring that up is that there are many breakaways that look at that tech stack and say, that works for me.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. I want to concentrate on other things. I'm not a technophile. I'm not that interested in the newest and the latest. I want something that's time-tested and proven, and if there's many, many thousands of advisors that use this every day, I'm good. Now, on the other side of that, you have advisors that are very much into new technology, and they want to see the new UX, the new UI, and why can't we have this, and why doesn't this integrate with that? And so one of the things that we're doing strategically in Raymond James is taking what I would call a marriage or a hybrid of taking the best pockets of brilliance that reside within Raymond James on the platform and even in the advice sets, which I can talk about in a little bit, and marrying those with external providers. So some of the great firms that you see on the floor here today, we're going to be partnering with and making some pretty important announcements over the next 12 to 18 months. All
right. Well, we'll definitely have you back for that as well. But something you mentioned, which kind of departs from the technology, but I think it's worth really highlighting, especially within the context of going RIA. At Raymond James, you own your book, whether you're W-2, 1099, or custody. That's huge. But one thing that's interesting about the RIA space in general, if you're in the RIA space, you always own your book. And you said something that I think is very meaningful, which is you have to fight for that client, the advisor custodying with you guys every day, because as an advisor, we're fluid, right? I mean, when you're no longer captive, right? And I know even at Raymond James, the W-2, they're not captive, but I'm talking about the other wirehouses where they are truly captive. The insurance broker-dealers where you're really captive. How hard do they have to work? You're stuck. What are you going to do? Right? You get what you get and you don't get upset is, I think, kind of the mantra for some of those firms. But when you're at a firm, either like a Raymond James or any RIA custodian, you guys have to fight for our business every single day. And I think that makes such a powerful impact on our experience as advisors, so much more so than on the broker-dealer side. Can you speak to that a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that shines through. That investment that we make every year, the fact that we have tech councils where it's not, hey, here's your meal, that's what we're serving up this year or for the next 5 years. It's what do you need? What are you thinking about? How can we leverage some of the best thinking in the industry on new technologies, new integrations? So all that's happening throughout the firm today. One of the things that I think advisors really appreciate about Raymond James, so when I left a large wirehouse, I was thrilled about it on some sides, but one of the things that I really missed were those experts down the hall, the wealth transfer expert, the someone that really knew how to model the pre-transaction planning of the sale of a $150 million business. The nice thing about Raymond James is that independent advisors in our RIA channel can still tap into all that. They can tap into our investment bank. They can tap into our bank. They can tap into wealth planning resources for ultra high net worth. So you're keeping a lot of that. So I say those are the soft sides of our platform. They're not technology driven, but they are incredibly powerful. As a former advisor, those are things I'd be logging on to quite frequently.
Without question. We were talking a little bit about this off camera, the whole idea of the textodians, right? So we have custodians like Ray J and others that are providing technology. We have technology vendors like Invested, I believe, is one of them, that's now looking to add custody. So it's really starting to blur the lines quite a bit. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I think we'll see, right? Custody is it's a complex business. We don't want to serve all advisors. We've seen people try to do that. It's very, very difficult. We have really focused on the higher end advisor with books of minimum $150 million to get in the door, because those advisors have a certain style of practice. They have a certain type of niche of client that has a different demand as an advisor and a different expectation as an ultra high net worth client. So those are the things that allow us, as kind of what I would say almost an unknown in the industry, but we have a lot of assets. We're the fastest growing part of Raymond James today, and we're reinventing. We have the beauty of having the wonderful heritage of a terrific firm like Raymond James, and all that they've done over the last many decades. But in our division, RCS is what we call it, we lean very heavily into the DNA of innovation, and we call ourselves the startup of Raymond James. So that's how we live and breathe every day. I get checked once in a while on why does everything have to be so urgent, and I kind of say, I think you hired me to do this, right? If we're going to win in a startup mode, we have to move wisely and thoughtfully, but we also have to move quickly, right? Because there's a competitive battle out there for mind share for advisors to what I know and think and have seen is making a decision on the biggest bet they're ever making in their life, which is moving their book, right? What is that going to look like? We have an entire department called Client Experience. That moniker sounds like it's big and broad. It's not. It's the team that's going to move your book across the street.
That's right.
And that's what they specialize in.
That's another really good point. Maybe we'll wrap it up on that note there. So when you're an advisor, right, there is no more significant decision you could make than moving your book of business. It is a hassle, right? Anyone that tells you, it is never simple, it is far from a pleasure, at best it's like tolerable. And
it's fraught with peril.
Absolutely.
A lot can go wrong.
Absolutely. So you don't want to make that decision more than you have to. And usually people that are going RIA, that's their final stop, right? They're not cutting a check to this wirehouse, to that wirehouse, to that wirehouse. Once you're RIA, that's your final spot. And to choose the right tech stack, to choose the right custodian out of the box, that puts you well ahead of the game. We have you for a couple more minutes. Any announcements? Anything you can tell us about that's coming down the pike?
I'd love to make some announcements, but we're a little bit premature. But those will definitely be forthcoming, and they're exciting. And we've worked long and hard. These are initiatives that have been going on for more than a year or two, in certain cases. The one thing that I would talk about, just to wrap things up, is as wonderful as it is, that journey to go independent, you are faced with, in our industry, on this floor, at other custodians, with a list of, with some of the thought leaders, 200 options for technology.
Yeah.
As an advisor that moved their book, how would you like me to hand you that menu and say, let us know what you think?
That's right.
Our job is to be a Sherpa and to curate that and help you really understand what you're voting on. And you don't need 200 apps. You don't need 50 APIs. You need a handful of tools that work well together, that are consistent performers, that hopefully have good integrations behind them. And that's one of the things that we work on quite frequently, is really being thoughtful about not just having a data feed, but having an API. And an API is it's kind of tricky language because an API can lay there and die and not do much, or it can be extremely robust with two-way data transfer and that sort of thing. I heard one of the technology luminaries yesterday speaking about how at one point they had a financial planning software company. They had more than 40 APIs, 12 of them worked.
Yeah.
And most of them work most of the time. So we put some serious technologists on that issue, and we're apt to get that right, and we have to date.
Yeah, that's probably the most important thing with technology is these integrations and making sure those data feeds. And I didn't know what API was 5 years ago when I went independent, but I do now.
What does it stand for?
Oh my gosh, good question. Always please integrate.
Application Programming Interface.
Okay. I like mine better. Always please integrate smoothly.
I like yours better.
Indeed. Brian Layton, Raymond James, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Pleasure to chat, and we'll see you on the floor.
Absolutely. Okay. And again, on behalf of goRIA, fueled by Investment News, I'm Chuck Vela, and we'll continue to broadcast live and record live here from T3 from Las Vegas. Now I'm doing it like intentionally, I think. I don't know. Las Vegas.
Las Vegas.
Las Vegas. We'll see you in about another 25, 30 minutes. Take care.